Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the New Media Lab podcast series for fall 2024. We are very, very fortunate to have with us today Mayor Giles from the city of Mesa, Arizona. And we are at the City of Mesa studio that's part of the Mesa Small Business Builder program. And this place is absolutely remarkable for citizens and small businesses to come here and have access to various types of multimedia platforms, podcast studio, conferencing rooms, video rooms. It is exceptional. And we feel very blessed today to be here and to be speaking with Mayor Giles. Mayor Giles, welcome.
I am honored to be here. I've been familiar with your podcast for a few years now, and I've always kind of thought that we were going to connect, so I'm glad that it's happened.
And my co-host for today, Dr. Tawn Hauptli, is with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Could you tell us more about the Hacktivate program here in Mesa?
Sure. Well, hackathons, are a term that and a concept that I think are familiar to most people, particularly young people, and this phenomenon that happened several years ago, where if you've got a compelling problem, you just bring together a lot of really innovative, tech-savvy people, and you throw them in a room, and you say, hey, we'll bring in some pizzas, in a few hours, but we want you guys to sit here and break the internet and be innovative, and here's some data. We don't want you to be uninformed, but you kind of tee up a problem for some innovative, smart people, and particularly younger people that are very familiar with technology and using the internet and doing deep dives. And it's been a great tool to come up with some solutions to some really compelling problems. And so that's the model. Mesa certainly didn't invent that, but we coined the phrase Hacktivate, borrowing from the word innovate. So it's a hackathon with some emphasis on innovation. And so we've been doing it now for, I kind of lost track of how many years. And another real need that we have in our city is finding better ways to connect with younger people. We get a lot of community engagement, and we are very purposeful in going out and soliciting community engagement. But generally speaking, the people that we're hearing from are older people. And so this is a way to target a younger audience and borrow from this hackathon concept. And when we do this, these aren't make-believe problems. This is not an academic exercise where we say we want these kids to have a good weekend, so let's give them a fun. No one's going to read this, but here's what they're going to talk about. No, these are actually the 3 or 4 biggest challenges that our community faces, and so we absolutely take very seriously what comes out of these programs, and we've adopted in our city action plans a lot of the things coming out of this.
That was going to be my follow-up questions. Have the youth provided you an action plan with a real problem? Can you tell us about one?
Oh, it's nothing but real problems. So it literally is help us with homelessness, help us with fentanyl, help us with food insecurity. Those and a few other are the topics that we need the most amount of help with, and that we challenge people, the young people in our community to give us good suggestions on. And when we do this, I'm always taken back by the quality of the reports that come back from these young people, because they are better at using technology than my staff is. So I go to our city staff. Our city staff are wonderful, educated, very competent professional people, but they're not as good at using presentation apps, as young people are. As college professors, you guys probably are used to seeing kids. I'm sorry to say kids, but students come in and be functioning at a very high level when it comes to using presentation apps, and they're just better at it than people of my generation.
Could you tell us more about the pipeline of students from Mesa Public Schools to the Maricopa Community Colleges, and how do you see this program growing, and where did it start?
Well, Mesa's got a lot going for it. There's plenty to be proud of when it comes to Mesa, Arizona. As far as economic development goes, we've got all these Fortune 50 companies, that are lining up, wanting to make multi-billion-dollar investments, and when they do that, they say part of the reason we're here is because you guys have a great workforce, and so Mesa's not broken at all. But as mayor, I've always felt like I had two jobs. The first is to celebrate all the great things about Mesa, and then second is to fix the stuff that's broken. And one of the things that we need to get better at is higher education attainment. Mesa is surrounded. We're immediately next to college town, right? Tempe, ASU is the largest university in the country, so predictably, Tempe has amazing higher education attainment data, and then Chandler and Gilbert are fairly affluent communities with people that are generally very well educated. And so Mesa kind of stands out in the region as underperforming when it comes to higher education attainment. And so for us to continue to be that community that attracts these multi-billion-dollar employers to come and invest, we have to be very intentional about how are we going to improve our higher education attainment. And to me, the best tool to attack that problem is Mesa Community College and the community college district. So that was the motivation behind the Mesa College Promise program, is trying to do everything we can to help Mesa Community College increase enrollment so that the city of Mesa, frankly, could increase our higher education attainment statistics.
And that's something that is a national program, right? The College Promise program?
Yeah, absolutely. We stole this from other regions. Some of the Long Beach College Promise is kind of one of the more well-known, but that led to really most of the state of California, the legislature stepping in and providing funding at a statewide level. So if you're from California, probably the city that you're in has a College Promise program. The same is true in a lot of areas of the South. Tennessee, for example, and Texas have caught on to this being important, and they have College Promise programs with their community colleges. So Mesa was kind of the first in Arizona, I think, to do it, certainly in Maricopa County. And when we did it, one of our motivations in doing it, frankly, was knowing that the rest of the cities were not going to sit be content to say, oh yeah, Mesa cares about sending kids to college. We don't. We knew that it would spread, and that has happened. Phoenix has got a great College Promise program now that in some ways I'm envious of. They do things like child care and some other things that we aspire to do. But one of my concerns with the program early on was, because we were starting from scratch, I didn't know if we were going to be successful in getting it funded. And so we put a fairly substantial city commitment into it, but that was really to incentivize philanthropy to come in and match the city gift. And we've been very successful in raising money for the College Promise program. So funding is not the problem with it at all. We've got plenty of money. What has been a challenge is getting people to take advantage of it, utilization. Just because you're dealing primarily with first-generation students and coming from families that their mindset just isn't fixed on higher education. And so we've kind of had to focus on changing hearts and minds of people in the community to raise their expectations for them and their children and wanting to take advantage of the program. So it's got, every semester, I think we're into our fourth year now, and we've seen tremendous growth in that each year. But I'm anxious for it to be kind of the rule rather than the exception. I think as I walk around the MCC campus, most of the kids I see, I think, would qualify for this program. But we just need, and if I were to corner them and say, hey, let's fill out the FAFSA and get you on Mesa College Promise, I think most of the people that we're talking to, they would qualify for this. So we just need to continue to work it and work it at the high schools and promote it, and hopefully, and then we're adding some additional funding to it as well. And so our ultimate goal is for Mesa Community College to be tuition free. where, there's just so much local funding that, at the end of registration, we don't ask you to write a check. We just say, we're looking forward to seeing you on the first day of class.
How do you see MCC and the city of Mesa providing educational opportunities to underserved populations in Mesa?
Yeah, that goes back to the College Promise program, just kind of becoming more institutionalized and more well-known, more utilized. Again, I think, and that we've got the tools to do that. We'll be able to find the philanthropy and the public dollars to do that. There's some other funding opportunities that we're partnering with MCC on right now as a city to set up some things that I think will be good sources of income for them. But it's all going to get back ultimately to moms and dads sitting around a kitchen table with their kids and asking them, what are we going to do after high school? Sure, you can, make $15, $20 an hour working fast food, but what's the long-term plan? There's so many career opportunities that are not just traditional academic, a 2-year associate's degree on your way to a university degree. That's a great plan for a lot of kids, but we need to do a better job of helping all of the families in Mesa know that there's some really high-paying, wonderful, lifelong career type jobs that they can get an opportunity to enroll in, through Mesa Community College.
Well, I think that's one of the things that is so exciting about being here at the Mesa Business Builder space is that you are connecting entrepreneurship with education, with technology, with making people again excited about learning, excited about education, taking pride in our educational system. Because for these politics happening here, just, the attack on education, the sort of anti-teacher energy has gotten out of hand a little bit. And I think we need to take pride back into our institutions and the people that work at those institutions.
So in my role, I'm a teacher educator at Mesa Community College, and students are studying to be K-12 teachers. I'm hearing a call to action about how I can incentivize my students or encourage my students to not only go and learn about teaching when they're going and working in the schools, and I have them in the elementary schools and the middle schools and high schools, but also serve as ambassadors for these programs, because they're more likely to influence these young people than the recruiters coming in and talking, that they're an example. If you see it, you can be it. And if they're talking to them about the opportunities, then those young people in elementary, middle school, and high school can see themselves as Mesa Community College students.
One of the things I love about community college is that you can be very nimble in terms of responding to the market. For example, we have a couple of needs in Mesa in terms of job training. We have it's a worldwide and national problem, but there's a huge nursing shortage in our community. If the hospitals in our community, that's their biggest complaint to me is telling me how difficult it is to be staffed. But an equally compelling problem is our teacher shortage. And so the programs that you develop at Mesa Community College, and going forward, the opportunity to perhaps offer a 4-year degree, so that we can. I forget the statistics, but a lot of the people, the adults in the classrooms in Mesa and around the state right now are not certified teachers. And it seems like your program could be an amazing tool to respond to that need.
I would say a lot of our faculty are first-time college students as well. And so they can bridge that story. They understand that story. This kind of leads us to our next question here. What are some of the ways the city of Mesa is working to reduce gentrification and increase housing available in our growing community? Affordable housing.
Well, one of my takeaways from the pandemic experience was learning something I already knew. But as soon as the pandemic hit, because Mesa is a big city, we're a city of over 500,000 people, so we got direct funding from the federal government. And so I think it was March of 2020, overnight, the federal government put $95 million into our checking account. And they said, okay, go spend this on COVID relief. And so we wanted to be responsible about that because we knew we were going to be held accountable. And so the first thing we did was do a needs assessment in the community. And again, this is where I learned what I already knew, but it really learned it better. The top two needs in our community from this huge outreach that we did is housing insecurity and food insecurity. And so during the pandemic, the city of Mesa became great partners with our food banks. And throughout the pandemic, we were doing once or twice a week, we'd have a couple of thousand cars roll through our convention center parking lot, and we'd put 50 pounds of food in their trunk. And so our food insecurity institutions are better now than they were pre-pandemic because we've come to realize how important that is. And a lot of people the number of people that need help in that area are larger than we imagined. And the same is true of housing. And so right now we're in the middle of a national housing crisis. There's kind of a perfect storm between interest rates and workforce and supply chain that creates, housing inflation has been dramatic everywhere in housing supply. But Phoenix leads that nationally, the Phoenix market, including Mesa. So that has been a serious problem for us. We have been very intentional in trying to do more. I mean, there's affordable housing, which is government subsidized housing, and we try to do all of that we possibly can. But also there's workforce housing and student housing and housing that is more more attainable. And so we're doing a lot of that. But we need to continue to be more innovative, and particularly a class that I know impacts your student body. We have a lot of aging out foster kids, and we need to look for opportunities to have housing specific to that community, but also more multifamily, so that because that's relatively more affordable than single family or even duplexes and triplexes. So it's kind of an all of the above approach right now. But a lot of the challenges related to that are microeconomic challenges. They have to do with interest rates and things that are a little bit out of our control. And that goes in a cycle. I'm an old guy. I can remember 2 or 3 times going through this, you can't afford to buy a house thing because interest rates are so high. And so that started to come back down, and I'm optimistic that a year or 2 from now, we won't have some of the pressures that we have now. But in the meantime, as a city, we do need to be very focused on increasing our housing supply, making sure that the city's not an impediment, that we're not getting in the way of people developing properties. Right now, frankly, we have thousands of units of housing that are already approved. They've gone entirely through the city process, and we're just waiting for developers to walk in and pull the permits and start building. But the economy isn't at a point where they can do that. So there's only so much we can do, I'm afraid.
We have a last question for you, but I want to put a little context. I just wanted to say what you did recently on the national stage. I remember when Ronald Reagan stood at the Statue of Liberty in New York City and invited immigrants to come to this country. I remember when he had a sweeping policy to make immigrants in this country legal citizens. That was the party, I think, that you were talking about in many ways. And I also want to make note how in your community of Mitt Romney's father taking on the GOP against these ideas, his position was, as people of faith, we need to embrace and love everybody and not with this skin color, we're scaring people on the border with a single mom with 4 kids escaping Venezuela. But that's not our problem. We have much bigger problems in our country. And the fact that you went on a national platform, stood up, and so I want to thank you for doing that. And I want to talk a little bit about what is your proudest moment as the mayor of Mesa? Would that be one of them?
Oh, sure. Well, let me thank you for saying that. Before I move on to the proudest moment thing, let me want to comment on some of the things you said. Mesa is a big city, right? We're the 36th largest city in the United States. We kind of fluctuate 35th, 37th, and we're continuing to grow. And inevitably, in the next few years, we will become the second largest city in the state. And on a national stage, people know who Mesa, Arizona is. We have a good reputation. And so we are a leader nationally in a lot of things. And we need to embrace that and realize that and be a good example. Mesa has this reputation of being a very conservative city, and I think that's, for the most part, true. But we also need to have a reputation for being a smart city, a city that makes good decisions, and a city with values. And I think all of those are true, and I hope that will continue to be the reputation as a community that we cultivate. But we're a third Hispanic. And we're in the top 20 cities for the number of DACA recipients in our community. So given that reality, I always thought it was important for the city of Mesa mayor to represent that part of our community. And so that's why I've been honored for the last several years to be the chairman of the Immigration Reform Task Force at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and to be very involved in immigration issues and to advocate for some legal changes and to address the problems at the border and with the immigration system. And that's been a frustrating experience, frankly. And it was, I was bitterly disappointed with the failure of the bipartisan immigration and border legislation that Senator Sinema and others worked so hard on. So hopefully, those types of reforms are politically very difficult. So hopefully we'll see those things happen here in the next in the short term, but we've got to keep pushing for those things.
What brings you excitement for Mesa in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mesa's on a great trajectory, so I envy the next mayor. I think that they're going to have a lot of things to celebrate. I would love to see the College Promise program continue to become stronger. I have every reason to believe that that's going to. I'd love to continue to see growth in our downtown, and I grew up in downtown Mesa. My family's home was not far from here. So it was a very vibrant place back in my childhood, and it still has the good bones, to be that. And with the addition of things like light rail and the Arts Center and higher education campuses, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the future of downtown Mesa. And then I'm excited about, Southeast Mesa. I was on our city council back in 1996, just a couple of years after the Air Force moved out of Williams Air Force Base. And I remember at the time we were like the dog that caught the car. What are we supposed to do with this thing? Because we knew it was a tremendous asset, but we also knew it was in the middle of the desert. And how do we work with that? And we also knew that as a community, we were a bedroom community. We needed to have more employment. And so it's been really fun for me to come back in the last 10 years, see the amazing growth, particularly in terms of economic growth and jobs and all the assets that are in that part of Mesa. So all of those things are going to continue. I mean, we're building momentum. So I think that the progress that you're going to see is even going to be more noticeable than it has been for the 10 years that I've had the privilege to be the mayor.
It's really been exciting, and you've been a good role model on a number of levels, as I've known of you, and then I've had the privilege to meet you a couple of times. My mother-in-law is a proud Lutheran, and many years ago she talked about meeting you and the interfaith kind of approaches that you took, drawing people together in the community. And I've seen you at different school events and the commitment that you have to your community. I think you've been a wonderful role model for us and someone that we can point to with pride and with a pathway that we can follow as civically engaged citizens. You're demonstrating it, you're talking the talk, and you're walking the walk. And I'm really, really proud that you're the mayor of Mesa, where I'm working and I'm sending students out to be employed. So I want to thank you for your work and your example.
Thank you. That means a lot. I did come to this with an appreciation for the strength of the faith community in Mesa, and was very deliberate about trying to include them more and take advantage of the tremendous strength that they have to offer our community. So I hope we've been successful with that.
We want to thank everybody. We want to thank our mayor, John Giles, for joining us today. We are privileged to have you here, that you would make time in your calendar for Mesa Community College. We thank you for being here. We always give our speaker the last word.
Well, thank you. I feel like I never answered your question with regard to what am I proud of, and so I'll close with that. I am proud of several things, but one that kind of stands out is a few years ago became obvious that Mesa needed to respond to the issue of a non-discrimination ordinance, and that was a very touchy issue for a lot of reasons. A lot of good people in good faith. There were mixed opinions on how to address some of those issues, and I'm really proud of the fact that we came together as a community. A lot of different communities within our community, and resolved that in a way that to answer your question, that's probably the thing that provokes a smile more than anything else when I'm reflecting on the last 10 years. But I think, again, that's just a good example of what this community is capable of, that we can enjoy and be proud of who we are, but at the same time we can be respectful and inclusive and look for ways to get better. So I know that's always been the case in Mesa, and I'm excited and expect that that's going to continue.
In my dad's language, we say hawa hawa wato Eddie Webb don't gali ahiliga donadoko. Take care of each other out there. We are all we have.